hopefully is going now. Okay, so hello over in YouTube land. I should be able to see the chat on YouTube a little more consistently, but it's going to be probably fairly delayed, I'm guessing. What's up, everyone? All right. Seems to be working. Apologies if you can hear my dog in the background. That would be Popcorn barking at delivery trucks. 1920. Okay, so people are starting to join the chat. That's great. My hair's looking crazy. So my plan with this critique is to do two things. If you've seen a critique from me before, you probably know how this works in that and if anybody in the chat on YouTube can confirm that audio levels are good, you can hear me okay. It looks like you can, but I'm going to turn up just a little bit. If anybody's seen me do a critique like this before, it's mostly just pulling up the image on an iPad and kind of marking up the dominant lines and compositional things that I see. But I'm going to add a layer that's new to this. Yeah, it's going to be, by the way, if you're watching on Instagram, the whole point is to just draw attention to the fact that the live stream is actually over on my YouTube. It's not going to be very high quality on Instagram. Sorry about that. The YouTube stream is much better. Sounds good. Okay, we're starting to get comments. So I got like over 100 submissions, which is way too many to get through in a reasonable amount of time. So I just kind of started with randomly picking 15 or so to start with. Hopefully, even if you're here to just watch and care about what I say about your image, you can learn something from the critique of other people's photos as well. But the added layer that I am excited to try is running these through the Insight text critique. So I'm gonna, not every photo am I gonna run through Insight's text critique, but whichever one, maybe the first one, and then randomly after that. So here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to my iPad and me in the corner. I do want my thumbnail, but I'm gonna make it very, very small so it's not messing with the compositional sensibility of the photo. And I want to note who is what and when so that people can quickly find their photo later. How's everyone doing today, by the way? Anybody else kind of still experiencing a lot of snow? We got like 4 inches, which has been intense. It's been a while. All right, so this first one is from Anthony. And it's at Anthony. Oh, I'm gonna have to do this faster somehow. How do I see the timestamp? That's kind of crazy that I can't. Yay, all right. Getting people over to the YouTube chat from Instagram. If you're watching on Instagram, get over to YouTube. This is wild. I don't know why I can't see the actual time on the live stream, but that's okay. I'll just type in the actual time that it is. Anthony. And here we go. I'm going to go ahead and send this off to Insight. There we go. Wait for that to come back. And go ahead and just like give her critique as that goes. Okay, so editing wise, I would say this is a little bit magenta. Skin tone and whatnot is the primary thing I look for in editing, and the order of kind of operations that I always work through is more or less get the exposure to where it looks good and then try and dial in skin tone. The reason for that is you will get color shifts for sure as you adjust the exposure up and down. Who knows why this is so magenta, but overall I would say skin tone way too magenta. Now I love the reflection that's happening, but it is kind of awkward that these shapes here, it's mirroring the tops of their heads, but it's not really doing the best job at it. Also, this thing down here I would get rid of for sure. Whatever, I guess that's a pier post. But I do like the texture of the clouds in the sky. The big thing I don't like, and you're going to hear this a lot, is try and pay attention to the contrast points of where the sky turns to darkness on the horizon, and then make sure that line never goes right through people's face the way that this is here. Try and position it so that it's offset. So you maybe shoot at a lower angle and get the line below them, like here, so that it's going through there instead of right through their face, or hold the camera up higher and get their heads below the horizon line so they're more framed in the water if possible. And then overall, it's like you might as well just go centered composition with it. I do like this offset thing, but you kind of haven't gone enough in one direction or the other as far as the center weighted composition or not. Okay, let's look at the Insight ideas that came back. So Insight actually took some of that advice for the top two images. The horizon line is above their heads, so the camera is at a much higher angle. The bottom ones, it's kind of interesting. It's a more intimate pose, but I still have an issue with where the horizon line is kind of going through their faces. Now, the next thing I want to ask Insight is, you can just reply to it. And it doesn't take very long at all. It's going to give me an actual text readout of a critique. So this is something you're probably not going to find useful like when you're actively shooting, but if you have an extra minute or some downtime between things as you're shooting, these text critiques are super helpful. And it's completely trained and in progress of being trained on my Patreon data. Like literally my entire back catalog of workshop and everything else on Patreon, all my Patreon posts are what is training the kind of guidelines of what is going to come back in a text critique. Hopefully it works. Here it is. Okay, composition. The image has a soft, dreamy quality with a shallow depth of field that nicely blurs the background. The horizon is mostly straight, contributing to the image's balance. However, the black object in the bottom right corner, that pier thing, is distracting and could be removed for a cleaner composition. The pose. The couple has an intimate, natural pose with good physical closeness. Both faces are visible, showing a connection. That's great. Light. The light appears soft and even, likely overcast, which avoids harsh shadows on the subject's face. This works well. Good. Improvement. Crop or clone out distracting elements. Incorporate more of the environment for context, or get closer for a more detailed portrait of the couple. Use leading lines or framing to direct focus to the subjects. Creative approach. Consider having the couple interact with the environment, like sitting on a dock with their feet in the water to add a storytelling element. Camera settings and gear, blah, blah, blah. So it does kind of dive into actual setting adjustments that you may or may not be able to use depending on what you have. That is an aspect of the critique feature I might change because, I don't know how relevant that's always going to be for people. All right, Anthony, good job. Now, we've got Anders. Anders at 1240. Anders. All right. Now, the first thing that strikes me with this, I'm going to go ahead and send it off to Insight, is the editing style. I really like it. It's very, I wouldn't call it particularly unique, but it's striking. Here we go. Just in terms of kind of having a filmic Pacific Northwest type of vibe. It's different than a lot of the other submissions. I would say the editing overall is really even and nice and just fine. You've done a really good job, framing that horizon line that I was talking about, that really high contrast separation between the darkness and the lighter grass. Not going through any awkward parts of their head or limbs or anything like that. The problem is it's tilted. I would definitely not... I would rotate this just a little bit. Unless you're trying to add a sense of movement or something, in general, I would probably keep that horizon line pretty straight, something like this, because they are holding still. There's not a whole lot of movement in the wind or anything with her veil. I would just definitely go ahead and take that extra time to straighten that horizon line. What else? The flyaways, it's always a interesting question, like flyaways on hair, because sometimes it does give that sense of movement and windiness that is really fun. But I think this one, because there's like one coming out of the nose and the chin here, I would get rid of at least some of the flyaways so that they're not, too distracting. It's really, I'm being kind of nitpicky here. I love that hands are in pockets here for the guy. Like some action or gesture for hands is super important. If it's somebody in a dress, then I would typically say, hold a piece of the dress or hand in pocket or something like that. What else we got? Overall, there's not a whole lot more interest to the frame because it's just sort of one dominant horizon line and that's it. It'd be cool if you could have maybe used some of this taller grass to frame it up. This is also a little distracting, the extra like cloud here. It's just pulling my eye to the upper right for no reason. Maybe content aware that in to be just a consistent tree line. I don't know. I also would perhaps be a little closer to him just to get a little bit more like clear and obvious intentionality behind the fact that he's out of focus. It seems like you're right at the edge, but if you got a little closer or just maybe shot at a wider aperture, you would get a little bit more soft focus and just your attention would go more to the bride. Also, the veil would be nice if it could fill out some of the space a little bit more, with somebody holding it. But I kind of like how it's wrapped around her arm and everything. So, this is, again, just being nitpicky. Let's see what Insight sent back as far as ideas go. Nothing yet, but I am going to go ahead, make sure that it sent. Yeah. We can skip. If Insight's taking a little longer for one image versus another, I don't want to like get hung up on waiting for that. But overall, really nice photo. Okay, now we've got Grayson at 1244. Grayson. Gotcha. All right. Oop, get off the screen there. Okay, probably you already know what I'm going to say about this, that it's not too distracting, this horizon line going through their face, because the background is sort of a softer contrast. It's snow-covered mountains, which is cool. But I would still say, because you're this darker little sliver of forest or trees or whatever it is there is kind of intercepting with their face, I would like to see that just better positioned, so it wasn't going right through her chin. Just a little bit lower from the camera angle would probably help. Just kind of position this a little lower. And then you could like nicely nestle them in this horizon line, right? If you bring the camera lower, that drops their faces, could maybe be framed up here instead. This is what I like to call the hand baby, when just too many hands are clumped together. It can be just like too much. I don't know how else to describe it other than it's like a hand baby. And I would pose or direct away from the hands, being like, maybe have him tighten the hug a little bit more so his hands aren't like touching and more kind of like this, and then have her hands kind of curled up around his, and I use that word a lot, curl your hands around his arm or something like that, so that her hands aren't quite so visible as well, and they're more of like, into that gesture instead of this clumpiness that I see. I do like that the ring is visible. That's always nice. But yeah, editing wise, I'm going to say it's a little too cool for my taste. And it's sort of, you kind of have like this, let me back out of all the markups here. You kind of have this sort of vignette that goes out to here. I would bring in more gradients or even the brush tool to darken this section a little bit more. And that's sometimes easier to see as a thumbnail than it is like the full big screen look. So a lot of times I will zoom out on my photos and just really pay attention to where the light is emphasized or not, looking at the thumbnail, because it becomes a lot more obvious than when it's full screen on whatever device you're looking at. So just something to keep in mind there. But overall, I would edit this a lot warmer. The magenta, it's a bit heavy in the magenta, but adding some warmth I think would help. All right, let's move on to this one. Awesome. Name is Reje, R.E.J, at 1247. All right. Having recently shot in a pool hall myself about a month ago, I can already tell you, great job. I just kind of rocked the ambient light as best I could, and it was not... it was fine. The couples thankfully loved the images and everything, but the quality of light here that you've got is much, much, much better. I'm guessing you used an off-camera flash or light of some kind, which is great. But the only thing I would say, like compositionally, it feels, okay, let's mark this up, edit. Here we go. So we got all this darkness, then a circular light, right? Then we've got kind of one main anchor here, and then the shape of the pool table, of course, that is kind of subframing the couple here, which excellent job with, I suppose that's called subframing. I'm not really sure. But there's just way too much headspace at the top area. I don't know what service that is providing visually to have so much darkness. So I would definitely, maybe we can just go into the crop tool and show you, let's see if I can keep the crop the way that it is. Original. Here we go. I would definitely bring it in much, 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 much tighter. Something like this. And then let's see if I can take the red marks off. Nope, I can't anymore. But yeah, just lean into, you don't need that amount of headroom in the upper third of the shot being so dark. Quality of light's great. Editing tonally, awesome. Skin tone looks really good. Maybe you could have, there's a little bit of that like tungsten yellow light hitting the top of their face a little more than maybe I would prefer. So if you could use a slightly faster shutter speed, I don't know what EXIF data is here. Not a lot. Oh, okay. Yeah, 1/60th. So 1/200th, 1/250th of a second. I would have adjusted that. When you adjust shutter speed, nothing changes with your flash power generally. It will just, faster shutter speed will kill some of that ambient light that's coming in there, which I probably would have done just so you had a little bit more even skin tone, if that makes sense. Okay, I sent this off to Insight, so let's take a look at what it suggested. Just a little bit lower and more leaning into the table is sort of the visual, instead of like these long stretched arms, which actually is a good point to mention, like pose wise. Anytime you have a really long extended arm, do whatever you can to prompt your subject into having a little bit more of a bend so that it doesn't feel like they're stretching and stiff, like literally stiff. So I kind of like that, and the Insight, the visual render of Insight is calling that out a little bit. Just have people a little bit lower and more relaxed to get some bend in the arm. Maybe not in this one, but the top one here. It's kind of goofy the way that she's leaning in, but you kind of get the point. Now, I do want to send this one off for a text critique. Anything else to say about it before we get that back? I love the color. I don't know if she chose to wear that yellow herself, but that is one of the small little resources I have for my clients that I send ahead of time is a engagement session FAQ. Patrons have access to that on my Patreon. If you look for like client materials or something like that, it should come up, and it does address kind of what to wear. And it really leans not so much into the like physical fit as much as it is patterns and colors, and yellows like this. Reds, greens are just golden, for lack of a better word I should probably use right now. But that yellow, especially playing off that really vivid blue, is just fantastic. Okay. The Insight critique. The photo's strong leading line with the pool table, drawing the eye toward the subject. The overhead lamp acts as a framing device for the couple, creating a focused area of interest. Pose. Oh, consider a slight reposition to avoid the lamp intersecting with the man's head. I didn't even notice that. What is it talking about? I think it might be a little confused with what is above here. And yeah, you are kind of cutting the head off with the subframing of the windows, but it's not as distracting because it's like the second degree of framing instead of the overall main dominant lines. Pose. The intimate moment is well captured with the man leaning in towards his partner. Ensure the woman's face is visible to engage viewers. Yeah, I would say she's plenty visible. Light. The ambient lighting creates a cozy atmosphere. However, the light source from above casts shadows on the faces. A reflector or soft diffuser could help. Creative approach. Have the couple engage more directly with the pool game by posing mid-shot or mid-conversation to add dynamism. Capture their expression as they focus on the game or celebrate a good shot. Sure. It could be a little bit more natural. I like their expression overall, but it does feel a little posy, but that's okay. The light source, use a diffused flash. Yeah, which clearly you already did. I think it's kind of picking up on what I mentioned, where you could emphasize the off-camera flash a little bit more by using a faster shutter speed to get rid of some of that yellow tungsten light bleeding into the frame, bleeding into their skin tone, rather. Okay, Robert. Let's get Robert detailed at 1252. Robert. Cool. This looks like it's 35 millimeter f4, 1/250th of a second, 640 ISO. I guess I can't see if a flash fired, but it doesn't look like it. Right out of the gate, it needs to be, yeah, unless it's my angle, but I think it needs to be straightened a little bit crop wise. So let's do that. Anytime you've got like really, obviously you're at an angle with the bench, but anytime you have like really dominant leading lines, like what you see in the bench here, I would highly recommend making sure it's not too tilted in one way or the other. So just a slight crop. I like how you're using the greenery to create a little bit more of a like isolating effect with the subject, but there is a bit of a gap here that it's like the detail and everything of that bench is just drawing my eye away from the couple. They themselves are also not in any particularly strong light in terms of quality of light or directionality. It's very, I don't know where the sun is. I'm guessing a bit high above. So that dappled light is just kind of distracting. And the background and the brightness of the subject is just not contrasty enough. It's not giving enough emphasis on them. There's a little bit of brightness here, but yeah, it's just tough. The highlight of the arms here is distracting. I wish they, had been kind of maybe leaning forward or something to not have such a strong highlight. That's, your natural human tendency is going to have your, generally going to be your eye drifting toward the brightest spots of the photo first, and then kind of oscillate to the darkest back and forth. And unless you really wanted her arm to be overexposed and noticeable like that, I really wouldn't have, use this light in that way. Okay, other thing, editing wise, I think it's a little magenta on the skin tones, just a bit. It would maybe tint it a little more green and warm, but this red upper right corner thing, I don't know if that's something you're shooting through or if you added that in post, but I would get rid of it. It doesn't really add anything to the shot overall. The natural, it just looks sort of alien to what would be there in this scene. Something of a different color, you could probably just add in a gradient filter and then shift that to be more of like a yellow or a light green or something like that. I think would be, advisable. Okay, I did send this off to Insight, so let's see what it said. Here's the visual render of Insight, a couple different pose variations for you to consider, and I think these are actually stronger poses. You can see their hands are interacting sort of in a way that is intimate. It's not like overly intimate. It looks like kind of relaxed or what have you. But here we've got just this clump of four hands again. That hand baby is just ever present today. So yeah, I would definitely use the visual render if you have Insight to, or just look at these ideas now and see, oops, I lost it. Here it is. See what you could do to pose away from too many hands clumped together, if that makes sense. Cool. I'm not going to read the text Insight, even though I think it's coming soon. It's just too time consuming. Okay, let's pop over to this one now. This is, let me check the YouTube chat, see how we're doing. Cool. Feedback is welcome along the way, but I can't read and think at the same time. It's too much for my brain. All right. Also, at this very moment, they are installing a brand new, very expensive HVAC system at my house because mine broke, and it's wintertime, which is the worst time for something like that to break. So hopefully they're done. Hopefully they're done soon. Okay, so this is Jen at 12:57. Hey, Jen. Okay, 45 millimeter. Interesting. 45. Oh, it was a zoom lens. It just happened to be 45 at f8, 1/800th of a second, ISO 160. Interesting. F8 is an interesting choice here. You're far enough away and wide enough with the focal length that I guess it doesn't really matter. But one benefit that I find of typically shooting wide open, even if stuff is mostly kind of in focus anyway, because it's so wide and you're so far from your subject, the natural vignette that you get from shooting most lenses wide open, it tends to help emphasize subjects a little bit more easily instead of having to add a vignette or brush and gradient tools. I don't really see the purpose of shooting this at f8, especially since you're still not actually dark enough exposure wise. I'm losing way too many details in the highlights here. It's just very blown out in a way that might be recoverable in editing. I'm not sure. Framing wise, let's see. Let me kind of draw the dominant line is definitely one shape here, one shape here. And you've done a good job framing him in this, but she is not quite. It's kind of cutting off right at her shoulder in a weird way that's awkward. He is framed very nicely, I would say, works for my brain, but she is getting a little bit too lost. If I had to, or if I had the ability, I would swap their positions so that her and her dress were more in this dark frame, because the white dress would really pop against that dark background. And then he in his suit could be framed, maybe here. Who knows? He looks really tall. This is also an interesting, like, in-between moment that I'm not really sure what's happening. It looks like they're kind of, maybe he's getting ready to go down and help her with the dress, getting it into position. I don't know. But, I would have liked to actually see his hands in a literal gesture and action at that time. Other thing is it needs to, horizon line is not straight. So let's straighten that real quick. Something like that. And then because the background is blown out so much, I think I would probably go ahead and remove these little sailboats. They're not, and maybe whatever this is, they're not really adding anything, and they are kind of nudging my eye to keep looking up. In general, I think actually, now that I'm kind of paying attention, I think the crop could be much, much, much tighter. Let's get something like that. Let's see. Let me do the original. There we go. Something like, even this would be better. Again, if it was much tighter in the crop and they were positioned sort of with the notes that I mentioned earlier, maybe they swap position or something like that, I think it would be much stronger. Editing wise, it could be a little bit warmer, I think. I'm just using my iPad. I'm not using True Tone or anything like that to be super highly accurate and precise with the color temperature, but it does look a little cool to my eye. The biggest thing I think from this overall is the crop, though. I know it can be kind of a painful thing to crop because you like, as the photographer, a lot of context sometimes in the scene, but yeah, this could benefit greatly. And then it becomes less of an issue with that horizon line. And now you just get these dominant shapes, one here, and one here. Just kind of pick and choose where you could frame them. I would honestly nudge them this direction to frame them in this dark patch a little bit easier, if at all possible. Insight sent back some visual ideas. It's kind of leaning into maybe playing with the dress a little bit more, or it's inventing a veil, but you get the point. All right, and then the text, I will read this one. The couple is off-center, which adheres to the rule of thirds and adds dynamism. However, the image feels slightly divided because the couple isn't interacting or connected by gaze or touch. That's true. If he had been touching her dress, I suppose, or herself, that would have added a little bit more of a connection. Consider having them hold hands or share a look to create a stronger emotional focal point. Pose, the bride is looking down, which adds a contemplative mood, but it doesn't engage the viewer or her partner. If you want more intimacy, consider directing her gaze toward the groom or the camera. And further note, I also quite often have people look in like the opposite direction of everything. So there's kind of this sense of like, ooh, what are they looking at in one direction? And then the second half of the couple is kind of looking in another opposite direction. It kind of keeps your eye looking back and forth across the frame. Having him face, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the light appears to be soft, possibly due to overcast skies, which is good for avoiding harsh shadows, although the couple is backlit and the faces are shaded. To combat this, use a reflector or fill flash to illuminate their face more evenly. Creative approach. To add uniqueness, consider placing the couple closer to the waterline and have them interact with the environment or each other. A shot with them sitting on the rocks and the water surrounding them might create a strong romantic narrative. Another option is to capture a close-up as they share a moment, using the water and sailboats as a bokeh background. There you go. Interesting ideas, Insight. Thank you for that. Okay. Name here is Chris, and we are at 102. All right, Chris, come on down. 50 millimeter at f16. Okay. And 1/88th of a second, ISO 100. So I'm guessing the intention behind, and which is that the RF? Yeah. The intention behind shooting at f16 is to get that sun star. And that is like one of my favorite reasons to use a small aperture like that, is to get an awesome sun star. Some lenses make them look really cool, and some lenses, they look kind of lame. This one's kind of cool. It's a few too many blades of aperture for my taste. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blades. Anyway, but it is fine. You pulled it off in terms of getting a really cool sun star within the lens. Editing wise, I think there's a little bit too much blue and magenta. Like I would desaturate that blue right out of his shirt, or just edit it a little warmer overall. You've done a pretty good job trying to balance the extreme dynamic range of the sun against the couple, but I don't think you need to push it as hard as you did. This is really, really sort of flat in terms of contrast. So I think you could not have to retain quite as much dynamic range as you're aiming for. The slightly lower angle for the bride isn't as flattering as I would hope. I would kind of pay attention to that a bit. And what else? Yeah, it's just sort of got a kind of purpley magenta vibe that's really distracting in the sleeve more than anything. I think crop works pretty well. You could probably go a little bit tighter, just so that this line here from the, what is it? Some kind of like stone building. I think if you crop in a little tighter, that would anchor and sort of split the frame a little bit more nicely than where you have it. But I'm nitpicking here. What else? Yeah, this is more of just the editing tweaks that I would make. Now, hopefully, and I would be curious to see if you got other options as far as where that star is really coming, or where it's like framed relative to the couple, right? So you've got this circle. It may be better to reorient yourself or them so that it's like up here instead, or maybe here in this little opening between their faces, but it's tough to say for sure, because then you might get too many sun stars obscuring their expression. This is a really tough technique to use. A lot of times I'm balancing the same thought when it's the ring of fire, and making sure the flare effect isn't intercepting and obscuring their face so much is a really tough thing to balance, and it's something you have to get right in camera, because it's just it always looks forced when you're trying to edit it. Some of these flyaways I would get rid of with her hair, because they're totally random. Just this little set here, and I do like the pose with the hand. That's all good. Maybe, like I said, a slightly tighter crop. Okay, next. David. Boom, and it's 106. David. This is a 24 millimeter ISO 100 f2.8 1/2000th of a second. All right, let me just check the chat and send this off to Insight as well. Boop. Cool. All right. I love the attempt to use the background and the lower angle to like isolate and frame the couple. It's a really interesting lighthouse, big lighthouse fan for sure. Just right out of the gate, because the lighthouse is sort of white mostly, it's got these black little highlights from every light. I would get rid of all of those, maybe even this little mess here, whatever those elements are, and keep all the rest, except for maybe this little sign. I don't know, maybe get rid of that while you're at it. That way it's like purely clean composition. The angle, okay, we're getting too much of the back of the groom's head. I really try in any pose, not just a low angle like this, like literally every pose, make sure and get a full and complete profile or more of each person's face. This is a profile, yeah, but it's too much in the direction of emphasizing the back of the head and the back of the ear and all of that. So I would have oriented them to be facing a little more in camera, or had him keep his body where he is, but had him turn and look way off into the distance, like over his shoulder, kind of that way, perhaps, just to see more of his face and his expression, especially since he's smiling. The more of a smile you can see, the better. And not a very flattering angle for her, I would say. It's too much neck and chin. It just, even if she's not, it doesn't look like she's straining too much, but that angle is too much of a neck strain. I often see this more when it's one person in front of the other, both looking at the camera, and then I have one person look back. They'll try and like strain their neck to look back. And what I usually need to adjust is by saying, look down and back. It's not always flattering to do that, but for most people, it's okay. Look down and back so that you're not getting too much of a stretched kind of neck effect. Her expression's nice, but yeah, I like that his hand has something to do, but overall, his body is being accentuated because of the lower, wider angle in a way that kind of just makes him look a little less flattering than he probably should. Sometimes if it's not the lens or the angle that I'm using, I will ask them to button their jacket so you don't get that wide open flap that makes it look like they're larger than they actually are. Editing wise, I love this. It's really, really nicely balanced. Even if you have some slightly blown highlights, I can't tell because it's filled in with a little bit of grain, which is awesome. And a good use for grain is to mask like super blown out highlights. It fills in that detail for your eye. But I don't even think it is overexposed. I think you just edited this very nicely. And I also like where you landed with the skin tones as well. Let's see what Insight adjusted for. Cool. So Insight is kind of leaning more into using the tower as a framing element to kind of hug the couple, which is an interesting approach. I really like this upper right one. And one cool thing about Insight is if you like one of the 4 options it sends more than the other, you can think of them as quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4 and reply with just one of those numbers, and it'll send you more variations based on that one as a starting point. Maybe I'll do that for another section later. One thing to keep in mind, it is giving interesting pose ideas. I like how it's having him hold the flower for this. That's kind of interesting. But one thing to keep in mind is Insight is more of a pose inspirational tool than lighting. It does try and recreate the light that you're working in, but I don't actually love the way that, even though I like the pose and the framing of this idea a lot, I don't like the way that it's lit because she is brightly lit in direct light and he is looking at her, thus shaded. So I would have kept this pose the same, but had him look also in the direction of the sun. So both their faces are evenly lit. Just something to keep in mind. Do we want to read this? You can pause and read that if you want. I don't want to take an extra minute to read that out loud because I've done a lot of that already. All right. Hopefully this is interesting and fun. Oof. My voice is starting to get raw. I think I'm going to end the Instagram live. Bye over on Instagram. If you're still here, use the link in the comment to get to my YouTube channel. That's where it's actually streaming. Cool. This is Mark, and it is 111. All right, Mark, let's see what you got. 85 mil. It's a prime lens at f1.6, 1/640th of a second. Shutter and ISO 100. All those settings track pretty well. Love the edit on this. Really nice kind of fall warmth vibe. Let's see. It said I lost the stream for a second. Yeah, Linda, it's not as redundant as it's like, I don't want to take up 2 minutes of reading each description because, yeah, it just takes a while to read and you can just pause if you want and read it yourself. I don't know if the stream actually cut out or not. It said that it did, so I'm just going to give it a second, but it looks like it's working fine. Okay. They are very much encased in a big kind of greenish yellow environment, which is going to be kind of difficult to edit your way out of skin tone wise. I probably would have gone a little bit cooler with the white balance, just so that especially he and the top of his head isn't quite as yellow as it is, or just desaturate. It's kind of the yellow and orange range of color. Overall, the crop I think could also be a little tighter. I don't hate it. Let's see. Let's just play around with the crop and keep it original, because I don't want to lose that really vibrant yellow vibe. This is one option for the crop that I don't hate, kind of framing them in the lower third so that you still get the front against the lens bokeh of the out of focus leaves, kind of balancing against the vivid yellow leaves in the upper left corner. Yeah, I think that's a much stronger crop overall. Now, you've done a really good job of, aside from the toning of color issues, this bright circle here in the background, you've done a really good job framing them. If you could have gone a little bit lower to the ground or had them walk closer to you so they could have been framed a little bit higher up, so they were kind of in the center of this circle, I think that would improve the separation between them and the background environment a little bit better, just a bit. But I like the pose. It's fine, kind of classic. And if you didn't do this to change it up a bit, like just also suggesting her left arm up around his neck or something just to pull him in close is usually a good way to make it interesting. The only other thing I don't like is this hot spot on his pants. It's just pulling my eye down there. So maybe even crop it tighter than this, but then you start to lose that cool bokeh. So I don't know if you can edit that hot spot so it's not as obvious, or whatever you can do to just kind of minimize the hot spot effect on the pants. Here's insights, kind of variety ideas. It's mostly changing up, looks like kind of the direction of where they're looking, and also leaning a lot more into the out of focus bokeh leaves, which I also would probably have done. You're flirting with the idea there of this kind of out of focus leaf thing, but I would, the more the better, because they are so surrounded in that green, or surrounded in that leafiness. Okay. Oh yeah, I wanted to see what Insight did with this one, just because I'm curious, but Solaris and just a dress sitting in a chair, which is cool and unique. Normally, you see a dress hanging. What is the minute time? It's 15. 1:15. Cool. So nice use of black and white. This is a zoom lens at 70. I don't know why it's at f6.3. I guess you wanted to retain the detail of the flowers also being in focus. That's fine. There's not it's an interesting photo. Now, let me just draw it up, kind of the dominant frame line. So you have this one here, this shape here, of course, and then this shape here. So you've done a good job framing the dress itself in this like avenue of a rectangle shape here, but it does feel a little empty here. It's just a white, open, empty space that keeps drawing my eye. I don't know what you could do to adjust for that. Maybe just simply crop in a lot tighter and go ahead and lose the upper frame section. Let's play around with the crop some and see. Let me get rid of all the lines so they're not distracting us. And original crop. Okay, so unless that frame, which we can't even really tell what picture is in it, is super important to the shot, I think, go ahead and just lean into the fact that the focus is meant to be on the dress, flowers in the background. This is a much, much stronger composition to me, and we just don't have that dead space of the empty wall being as distracting as it, in my opinion, is. Overall, editing-wise, you did a good job not losing too many highlights at all. Maybe that's one reason you went. Black and white is a much more forgiving of blown-out highlights, and so if that is why you chose to go black and white, then that's great. But overall, I think the editing is pretty spot on. This is a great use of dappled light, which is pretty rare, but is a benefit that you don't have a person's face in this, where the dappled light tends to be less flattering. An empty wedding dress is going to be more forgiving, but I love that this still has the shape of a dress and a person without a person in it. That is really, really cool, and something that I don't know if you just got lucky or if you really specifically set it up like this, but most dresses don't hold shape at all once you take the container out from it. They come with those like torso containers to have the dress hold shape without a human body in it. And this is really cool that you pulled this off. There's no hanger that's distracting or in the way or ugly. And yeah, it's just great. As far as I know, I'm like spending a lot of time talking about a dress photo for some reason, but I think it's really awesome. I do want to see what Insight says about this in the text critique. Dress is well placed in the chair, creating an elegant curve that leads the eye. The balance between shadows and light is dramatic. Consider recomposing to minimize this element. Okay, I shouldn't have skipped. However, the dark painting against the dark fireplace competes for attention, which is exactly what I mentioned. Consider recomposing to minimize this element or use it to frame the subject better. Maybe the dress could be repositioned to sit more centrally within a lighter background or near a window for natural light. No person is present, so no pose. Light soft diffused, but the right side is quite dark. Consider using a reflector to fill it in. A lot of times when it's saying reflector, you could kind of swap that out for gradient tool or something to like selectively dodge and burn certain areas of the shot in post. Creative approach. To add intrigue, consider placing a person to the side as if in motion towards the dress, adding a narrative element. A soft focus on the individual could maintain the dress as the central subject. A low aperture could achieve this. Utilize the room's natural light, possibly enhanced by a gentle artificial source. Okay, that actually does bring up a good point. And one thing I really try and do, like I step out whenever people are literally changing, for sure. And I tell people, like, I'm going to be on the other side of the door. Yell for me whenever you're comfortable, and I will come in and get like the final zip or button. And I usually proactively ask, is this a zipper or a button, just to get that conversation kicked off. And it gives me a sense of how much time I'm going to have. If it's buttons, I'm going to have a lot of time to get in position and see the scene and kind of work some various ideas. If it's a zipper, I usually need to focus right on the hand gesture of somebody zipping, because it's not going to last very long. And I hate asking people, can you unzip it and then zip it again, just for me to get a variety of ideas. That's just silly. But before I step out of the room, I ask, like, can I just, before I leave, get a photo of you taking your dress down off the hanger or picking it up off the chair or whatever it is, just to get what Insight suggested, that sort of narrative story of a person interacting with the dress. But overall, awesome kind of detail shot of just the dress. Okay, I think I'm going to make this the last one for now, because my voice is starting to go, but I will do another one soon, and kind of pick up on wherever we left off. Let me get this noted at 1:20, and the photographer is Patrick. Apparently I can't spell Patrick. Okay. 84 mil. What is this? 84 millimeter. Oh, that must be the full frame equivalent, because this is the crop sensor. So it's a 56 millimeter f1.2, which is an 84, roughly 85 millimeter prime for full frame shooters. At 1.2, 1/25 of a second. Okay, yeah, I'm not seeing anything settings wise that is a problem. I'm going to send this one off to Insight as well, just because I'm kind of curious if it comes up with any other poses with hands, even though there aren't hands in this. Okay. I love the editing. It could be maybe a touch warmer in the white balance, but there is something happening here. I don't know what preset or what you're using. It seems like the, what's it called? The color grading tool was used, and in the mid-tone range was some sort of golden yellow. I usually like to add, I call it mid-tone 41, to add sort of this filmic yellowish golden vibe to things, which seems like what has happened here. And I really love it. And I like the framing. It does seem a little bit too top heavy. Like, I think you cut off their bodies a little bit too high. I would like to see a little bit more of their bodies, if possible. Lower camera angle, but you've done a really good job with these dominant intercepting lines not being too distracting, cutting their face off. Like these darker ones here, if that was going right through their face, in only 1 or 2 spots, that probably would have been too distracting. And so anyway, you've done a really good job framing them within that. Maybe they're a little bit off center too much in this direction. If they could have gone a little bit more this way to the left, I think that would have been better. And also may have emphasized the reflection a little bit more on this side. I like how much they're emphasized on this side, but I'm almost completely losing the reflection over on this side here, which would have created a really cool balance. You might actually be able to edit your way into that emphasis as well, so that the reflection really comes out. Does seem like a really cool spot to shoot. I'm curious. That must have been extremely narrow for them to be in. And let's see what else. Yeah, because you're so top heavy with the frame the way that it is, I think I would crop this a little tighter. Oh my God, original. Here we go. Something like that, so that that bottom third line is going right through their eyes, or roughly their face. I think that's much, much stronger. Maybe not that much because I'm losing too much of the reflection, but it does help to bring out the reflection, to crop it in a little bit tighter like this. Yeah, I think really my only note is slight edit adjustment to be somewhat a little bit warmer, and then have positioned them a little bit to the left side instead of the way that you've done it. Between 2 semi-trucks, well, this is a freaking awesome way to, I'm surprised trucks park that close together. Awesome way to leverage that environment, which I'm sure was a bit industrial and all kinds of distractions all over the place. Okay, let's see, how many more do we have? 1, 2, okay, I'm gonna knock the rest of this bunch out because it's only 3. We can see what Insight did as a visual idea. It's leaning more into the reflection aspect. Ooh, the lips look so weird here. Don't do that. Do not use lips, but it didn't invent hands. I was kind of hoping it would. All right, this one, I love the precision of the framing. The direction of the light is a little too low, maybe. So if it's always tough to like say, this is what I would do, but in real life, like it may have been physically impossible. So sorry about that if that's the case, but having the eye turn and look more in the direction of the light might have actually emphasized the brightness of the light and caught it a little bit brighter in the physical eye itself, instead of kind of losing the top half of the eye here in darkness. Or rotate the entire head to kind of look a little up in the direction. But overall, great job creating this fun shape to almost like a triangle shape to play with here. Really draws the eye in an interesting way. The hair is maybe a little bit too large and bundled. I'm guessing this person's laying down, and that's why. So if somebody lays down and they've got a lot of hair, I try and make sure and kind of, can you just sweep that under and behind your head so that it's, unless it falls in a way that's really cool, so that it's not such a, like pressed up against the backdrop or the floor or whatever. This looks like maybe a carpet. Overall, really cool. I would love to see this in a black and white as well. I'm going to see if I can just use the built-in. Yeah, it's really cool in color and in, well, the black and white, maybe it starts to look a little too much like clown makeup. So maybe not. But yeah, overall, not a ton of notes on this one. Compositionally, it's very interesting. I don't think I would adjust or straighten this in any way. I mean, it would be cool to see sort of a right down the middle look, but I like when somebody's laying down, you do, I think, get a little more flexibility with where the horizon line, if there is any, is straight or not. Yeah, so anyway, this is cool. Interesting. If anything, maybe you could edit with a brush or something to make the blue even more blue and aqua instead of where it is, because her ear has this kind of red pink vibe in it. That's usually something I like to edit away from. But yeah, awesome. All right, I want to send this to Insight just because I'm pretty sure it will. This will be a good check for my nudity detectors. I had to build out an entire system of how it, can check for nudes because, yeah, I don't want it rendering things that are inappropriate. This is not an inappropriate shot, but I'm curious if it takes it. Cool. Oops, I think I forgot to tag the person's name last time. Sorry. I'm going to do that now. This was Stephanie at around 122. All right. And now we've got 127 and Jana. All right. 85 mil at one point. It's an 85-1.4 shot at 1.8, 160, 1/640th of a second. ISO 64. Cool. That all makes sense. Love the editing. Now, I've mentioned in a few posts skin tone looking too magenta, but this actually is complementary to the environment, the kind of tone of the sand and water. It has kind of a magenta vibe, and of course what she's actually wearing, that pink sort of magenta outfit. I don't know if that's because it actually was or because it's just edited that way, but it's very complimentary in a way that works great. The biggest thing, so I love the editing, but the biggest thing is the crop on this foot being weirdly gone. I desperately would have had both, because the foot should be visible and you don't want to crop people off at the limbs like that, but also because a bend in the knee on the other leg probably would have been a little more natural. I don't mind the super straight leg, but I wish that you had retained the foot somewhere in there. Pose-wise, in the hands and arms, really, really interesting and dynamic. So that's good. And we get a slight bend of the elbow on one arm and an extreme bend on the other. This is all nice. It just really draws the eye, with the shape of everything about this person, which is great. Maybe if the hair had been a little lower in the water, this looks kind of weird to have this extra contrast where her hair is sneaking out. So honestly, maybe even get in there with a brush and get rid of some of that contrast so that it kind of matches the rest of the contrast in the hair. Makeup looks good. Nothing to note there. The light, super soft and flattering, which is always helpful. I guess overall, I'm kind of itching for I like whatever you're shooting through here, this little white scrappy thing, but I'm kind of itching for something to complement that. So maybe this darker part of the rocks, you could edit to be dark and kind of offset and frame, balancing this white section, or I don't know, not have this white thing at all. It does add a little bit of interest in the foreground, but I think you could almost get away with just cropping it in. And then it becomes a little less of an issue if you crop it a lot tighter like this. The leg going off the frame is a little bit less of an issue to me. Insight did not come back with anything, so that's good generally. Last here, is this the last one? Last one in this round. Bradley, and it's 1:30, about a full hour. Great, guys. Here we go. R6, 28-70, and it's at 28, so as wide as that lens will go at f2. Great. Okay, settings-wise, I would say you're shooting at 1/250th of a second with what looks like bounce flash. ISO 800, I probably would have dropped my ISO a little bit and boosted my flash power, only because we're getting a little bit too much ambient light. Maybe it's from your bounce flash. I'm not sure. I can't quite tell the direction, but this is just a little bit too bright behind them. Some spill, or maybe that was another light hitting it. Looks like you're already fighting lasers. Thank you, DJ. So I would probably drop the ISO a touch, maybe base ISO, and then boost the flash power if you're able to. This looks like a pretty white room, so it shouldn't necessitate needing a whole lot of flash power. I probably would edit out this sign. Compositionally, it's tough because you're getting this door kind of anchoring it. You're getting this anchor, and you need to frame them in this direction a little bit more. So they're kind of anchored between these two dominant lines. Right now, there's just all these kind of interceptions happening in a way that is not really working for you. And there's so many interesting things happening in the background with people kind of just, being there. That's fine. But I would crop it like this. There's just way too much dead space in this backside corner with the thermostat there and some more of those lasers. So I would definitely, let's go ahead and just crop the whole thing. Boop. let's go original aspect ratio. Yeah, something like this would help big time. You get a little bit of the perspective. Now, this is a very, very candid, natural moment. I'm assuming you didn't direct them into this pose. So it's a little more forgivable to have so many hands clumped around, especially this line of 3 hands here. It's fine. His arm is a little bit too high and around the neck, but again, it feels right for the moment. And the overall quality of light is great. I think you bounce flashed in a really great direction. But yeah, it's mostly just an issue of cropping and what more can you do when it's like a truly candid moment. I like the asymmetry of one person looking away and one person looking at the camera. But if you were able to direct into a different setup, I would just pay much more attention to the hands, so it wasn't quite so much of a chokehold type of vibe. Yeah. All right, guys. I think I'm going to pause there for now and get back to checking on my new heater. Thank you so much if you submitted. I have so many to go through. I hope you found this interesting, and I'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.